Hard Times Cafe. Actually, the first one I visited was Cafe Can Do in Battle Creek. But I heard at that point that I had to talk to Bob and Osterhout because this was his dream and his model, and he helped them get started. And when we talked about starting a cafe in our community, Bob was very helpful in teaching us how to do that. The local cafe meets at Westminster Church at 5:30 every Wednesday. We welcome you to visit. We have some cafe folks here that I hope will have a chance to share a little bit with you about what happens locally here. If not during the workshop, then certainly over lunch. But the cafe has probably been one of the most, it's hard to know how to describe my experience with the cafe. It has been wonderfully challenging. I have made friends with wonderful people from the cafe, and we continue to just work and learn together. And there's just such beauty in the model of the cafe that Bob's going to talk to us about. So thank you for your work with the cafe, Bob, and for your willingness to be here with us today.
And I like the title of this conference about partnership, because that's really what the Hard Times Cafe is about. Basically, I just had some ideas, and quite frankly, when we originally started Hard Times Cafe, it was back in 1991 when the state of Michigan cut general assistance, and I was working for community mental health at the time. My background as a psychologist, that's what I trained with. And I said, well, we got to do something. There's 300 people in this county who are losing their only source of income. And the people said, yeah, but there's nothing to give up. So I called up a person who worked for Department of Social Services, what they called it at the time, Gretchen Wilbur, and said, let's do something. And we opened 2 weeks later. So it wasn't like there was some grand scheme or some plan or something that I had sat in the back room or an ivory tower figuring out. We just got enough beans and burger together to put 6 chili on the table and invited people to come and call it the Hard Times Cafe. And the first decision that was made that night was that patrons would make all decisions. So the program is owned by them and it's up to them. And a lot of the structure of the program in terms of the ideas were things that I came up with, but I wouldn't say that it's my program or that I designed the program, because the only way it works is a partnership. And ideas are worth nothing if people don't put them into place. I mean, I can give you an idea of how we can fix the political system of the United States, and it sounds like a good idea to me. I'm sure thousands of other people could give you those ideas, but the people who really deserve the credit are the ones who put it in place. So it's not so much just coming up with it, it's how does it work? And that is a partnership. That's the only way it can happen is people working together. And a new person to me, so I want to welcome you and Bob.
Hi.
This, I've given lots of talks. We used to do training about the Hard Times Cafe around the state. That's how we generated the income actually from my salary for a couple of years. But this is the first time that I've been able to speak really personally from my own experience with what the Hard Times Cafe has been and how it's developed. And oh, you got it. No, set. Okay. You one of these? No. Okay. I'm Bob. Nice to meet you. Okay. It gets hot, but it's air here. Okay. I'll start again. Let me start with a disclaimer, okay? I don't have a PhD. I'm not a doctor. I haven't done any research. Quite frankly, I haven't read a lot of books about working with disadvantaged people. I have 20 years experience working with disadvantaged people, from people who are mentally retarded or chronically mentally ill, or counseling, or chronic pain, people in poverty. But I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. Basically, my best teachers have been my clients. And quite frankly, I found this to be a real important part of my own spiritual journey, and that's what I'd like to share with you today, because it's about partnerships, not just in terms of partnerships within the community, or how can the community work together to serve people in poverty. And And I'm going to use the term people in poverty because something that took me a long time to learn is patrons told me they don't like to be referred as poor people. Poor people means that, oh, poor you, and I should feel sorry for you. And they say, that's a crime. Okay. Don't say poor me. Look at me for who I am. And that's really what Hard Times is about, is really looking at people for who they are. And when you really look at people and you really see them, there's not much difference. There may be difference in the clothes, and there may be difference in what you got in your pocket, what you can drive away with, and what you've had for dinner. But when you look at the inside and the essence of what we're all about, there's a whole lot more similar than you'll ever find that's different. So it's really about a partnership with people, a partnership with disadvantaged people. And it's also about a partnership with God. And the way I learned to do therapy, I kind of went in through the back door to get my degree. It's a long story, but I got my degree and learned, all this testing and stuff like that, which I never used. But I learned by getting stuck. I'd be sitting across from a client. Well, my best teachers were retired people. That's another story, because I had an opportunity to work with them and to really listen to them and to learn how to tune into people. I worked with people who had a long history of violence and aggression. And if you didn't tune into where they were at, they'd come at you. And so the thing is, I needed to let go of my thoughts and everything and just tune into where they're at, and then we could communicate and work it out. So basically, if I wasn't on the right track, they let me know by blowing up. And so it was a very simple training process. I should have paid them rather than what I paid Michigan State University. But what I found is there are times when I would get totally stuck. And I'd be sitting across from someone or with someone, and something would be happening, or they'd be saying something, and I'd think to myself, I don't have a clue. And here you are looking at me, paying $80 an hour, maybe in some cases, and you're looking at me to fix this, and I don't have a clue. And what I would do at those times is simply say the prayer. And the times it got to be real short is, God, this one's yours. I don't have a clue. And every time that happened, there was a breakthrough. Within the same period of time, not weeks later, but within that session, something happened. And so I look back and what happened? And that's how I learned to do psychotherapy, is by recognizing what happened when I let go and simply join with God and join with the person across from me. And that's, I think, the essence of this spiritual journey. I'd like to share just a brief reading with you. It's the parable of the sower. The sower went out to sow. And as he sowed, some seed fell on the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky ground where it had little soil. It sprang up at once because the soil was not deep. And when the sun rose, it was scorched, and it withered for lack of roots. Some seed fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it. But some seed fell on rich soil and produced fruit, 100-fold, 60 and 30-fold. And the question that I want to present to you is, what is the nature of this soil? And I'd like you to think of this parable not in the traditional way. It's explained just in the next few pages here what Jesus meant with that. But think of this in terms of disadvantaged people and what their options are in this world today. There's a big movement that says, do it on your own. Just pull yourself up by the bootstraps and make it happen. Okay? That's like the seed falling on the rocks. Okay? What resources are there? What hope is there? What vision is there? If you can't see it, it can't happen. Okay? So just throw the seed on the rocks, and the birds will come and devour it. People have had that experience, that they've been devoured by our culture because of the lack of resources and the lack of opportunity. Or you can give them a handout with thin soil. Let's take care of you for a day. Here, I feel good because I can do something. And they feel good because their bellies are full and they feel comforted and they feel love for a moment. But does that last? Does that sustain? Does it grow? Does it move into a direction that leads to a fuller life? That's the force of it. or you can get them into the human services system. Okay, it's really good. Grand Rapids is a different story. I'm just always amazed when I go to Grand Rapids and the resources you have in human services and how people work together. Up in Clare County, we have every agency is a multi-county agency, and every agency belongs to a different group of counties. And all of the directors live out of town. So trying to get something done with people working together, it's next to impossible, because you can't even, it takes a month to arrange a meeting between people. I mean, it's just, and very few professionals understand the system, let alone someone in poverty who's struggling and going through a hard time. So throw it in among the thorns, and then you're going to get choked out. And eventually give up. But then there's the rich soil. What is the nature of that rich soil? What makes up the rich soil? What makes it rich? What helps people to grow, to prosper, to produce, to become what they were born to become? And how can we create that soil? That's really what we're talking about. And that's through partnership. My experience is partnership with people who are in poverty and who are struggling, and it's partnership with God. And in some ways, it's a little bit of a stretch to say I'm a partner with God, because I can't even conceive God in my really stop and think about that. But it reminds me of a story about, I can't even remember the guy's name, which I think kind of fits, but there was some rookie basketball player who played for the Chicago Bulls. He only played part of one season and got cut and never came back again. But his first game that he played happened to be the game that Michael Jordan scored 68 points. And this rookie got in for about 5 minutes and made 3 or 4 shots and made 1 basket. And he got 2 points. And someone asked him after the game, what was it like to play in his first professional game? And he said, well, Michael Jordan and I combined for 70 points. And that's really what it's about. Okay? But we need to play our role. And if he hadn't been there, Michael Jordan probably would have got a few less points, because he did his job too. And that's what we need to do, is to do our job and to move on with it. A little bit about the Hard Times Cafe. I mentioned we opened in 1991. And the first thought when I contacted Gretchen and was certainly chilly, and something I've learned and that I've continued to this day, is I always have a time of prayer before we run a meeting. I usually facilitate the meetings, so I get off myself and shut down and listen. And the plan was, I do a lot of stress management work, a lot of training and stuff like that, so that, okay, these people are under a lot of stress, I'll do a little talk about stress. And I wasn't quite sure it wasn't coming together, so I thought, okay, I'll meet them, and then I'll stop and figure out what needs to be done and work it out. And what came to me when I shut down and sat alone was just this really strong message: everything starts with a decision. And so that's what I opened the meeting with. I just stood up and I said, everything starts with a decision. And the rest of the discussion just came from there, and the bottom line was is what came out of it is you've just lost your source of income, and there's a number of choices. Okay, we can try to organize and go to Lansing and pitch tents in the cold there, and everybody gets the flu, and some of us get pneumonia, and nothing changes. We can argue and complain and try to change the system, but how long have we been doing that? Or we can look at what's here in this room and figure out what we can do together. And that's what they decided to do. And that's all we did once. And then from there, it was one step in front of the next. We started with 4 basic values, okay? And they're part of this model here, okay? This is a model that outlines, and you have a copy of it, so I'm not going to go through this in great detail, because you can read it on your own and give me a call if you have questions or comments about it, okay? And again, these are just thoughts and ideas by a guy who's been working in the field for a while, okay? The dignity of each person, the potential for improvement, the power of community, and a need for responsibility. That's all we started with. This is what's important to us. We want every person treated with dignity. So we had about a dozen volunteers that first night, and we made sure that everybody who walked through the door had their hand shaken at least 5 or 6 times before they got to their seat, and then we served them the meal. Okay, you don't stand in line at the Hard Times Cafe. It's served to you, and we avoid using paper plates. It's served to you on a real dinner. Okay? That's a real key component to it. focus on the potential. We don't ask what's wrong in your life. Everybody's got a story, and what I found in working in counseling is the more they tell the story, the worse they feel. And you can just recycle it and go around and around and around. And the key is to move on. The key is to get going in a positive direction. And yes, you respect that and take it into account, use it as information to learn from. But that's not where you stay. That's where you've been. That's where you want to get away from. Okay? So we focus on the potential. We don't ask what's wrong. We ask, what do you want to do? What are you interested in? If I could give you any job in the world, what would you do? Okay, and then we try to figure out opportunities so that people can meet that potential. Because people ultimately know that they have something and it gets buried and covered up. But when you look at it, they see it. So the key is you learn to see the potential. Even in someone who may be strung out and dirty and smelly and swearing and potentially violent, you learn to see that potential. If you look at the potential for violence, you're probably going to get violence. And if you look at the potential for growth, you're going to get growth. And that's what I learned for working with violent people. Okay. I worked with a guy once who had been in seclusion for 30 years. This is when I was working in institutions. He was 12 years old when they locked him up, and he was 33 when I met him. He had been in restraints for 3 consecutive years, straitjacket, tied up in this locked concrete room with an iron door for 3 years continuously. The department, this is the mid-70s, the Department of Mental Health came up with the Mental Health Code, and it became illegal to do that. You couldn't lock people up anymore. Couldn't tie them up anymore. Okay, had medical and all this stuff, paperwork to justify it. So they sent him up to the facility where I worked because we had a psychiatric facility and they could give him drugs, and we wanted to have some drugs and help out with them. So, because every time they let this guy go, he would take off at whoever was with him. I mean, just absolute attack. Not just, swinging. I mean, it was head and fists and knee and elbow and just swinging all over the place. I mean, just attacking whoever was there. In the process of bringing him into the building, we had the 4 biggest, strongest staff on the whole ground, 700 staff, big guys walking with him. He was about this tall and probably weighed about 130 pounds. There was a row of windows at this height in the hallway, and he put out 3 of them with his foot. Okay? Big, strong guys trying to hold him down. He was pretty intense guy. Okay? They asked me to check him out because I had a lot of experience working with people who were violent. And so I did. And a bunch of people were, watching to see what happened. I opened the door and I stepped in, and this is how I learned to deal with somebody who's out of control. Okay? This is the posture that works. It's funny because the Department of Mental Health told us to go in like this. Okay, what are you going to do when someone walks in like here? Okay, I'll take them out. Okay, but in this way I can't strike a blow. Okay, I can move quick. Okay, and I learned that. Okay, if someone comes at me, I'm behind them real quick, so I never needed to hurt him. I did. But I just started talking to the guy. Okay, and I had no idea he was pacing back and forth. I had no idea if he understood what I was saying. I didn't read his chart. I intentionally don't do that. I don't want to set my mind. I knew he had been violent, but I didn't know all the details. And I was pretty convinced he had a really bad headache. Tremendous tension. I've never seen that much tension in one person's face and neck. And I know a lot about physical addiction. It's like part of the training and stuff. So I picked up on that. I said, wow, looks like you've got an incredible headache. I know a little bit about headaches. Why don't you sit down? Maybe I can help you relax a little bit. That might help a little bit. And he sat down on his bed. That was the first time I knew he understood what I was saying. And I did a little bit of stuff, on his head and neck, and it helped a little bit. So, and I sat there and talked with him for a couple of minutes. He never said anything, and then I got walked out. There was a whole group of people looking through the window to see what was going to happen. And the nurse who had admitted him, who had done all the background work, said, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. He's never not attacked someone. I can't believe it. And there was a brand new staff person. The guy was 19 years old. He just finished his training. I've never seen him before. He had no experience. He said, that's nothing. He walked in and did something. Okay. And he put his finger exactly on what worked. For 30 years, every human interaction this guy had, he had people expecting to fight. All of a sudden, twice in one day, 2 guys don't expect to fight. What you see is what you get. And if we can open ourselves enough so that the Jesus within us can contact the Jesus within another person, that is the most difficult process. This is not an easy, wonderful, let's all feel good kind of thing. This is tough, gut-wrenching, painful work. And most of it comes from within us. It's not working with the people that's tough and gut-wrenching and painful. It's what we find within ourselves that we have to overcome and that we have to work on. So this model of empowerment basically outlines, and again, you can read it over, it's the conditions for empowerment, the process of empowerment, the role of helpers, and the process of becoming an effective helper. And the way it works is it's like boxes stacked up on top of each other. Okay, so the conditions of empowerment, acceptance is the bottom box. Okay, if you don't have acceptance, don't worry about the rest of it. Stop and work on acceptance. Okay, if you take that away, the whole stair thing falls down. Okay, so start at the bottom. And we use this as an evaluation system. The elders evaluate me on my performance. They look at this and they rate me on a 5-point scale. And okay, how's Bob doing on acceptance? How's he doing on offering support? And in terms of respecting our authority and all of that. So these build on each other, and you can read that through. I won't tweet. It's a real short presentation this morning, so and I do an all-day presentation of this. But I wanted to share it. So it's a way to check on yourself. And it's basically just from experience. There's no research to back it up or anything like that, and any numbers. And it's been fine-tuned over the last really 5 years. And it's essentially what's present when empowerment happens and what's missing when it doesn't, just from my own experience. So to the extent that's useful, I share that with you. There is and I just want to quote from a little book that I wrote a few years back. That describes an earlier version of this process. There is a common thread that weaves through each of the steps of the foundation, these 4 values of the foundation. A single underlying principle supports the dignity of each person, helps us to focus on the potential for improvement, creates the power of community, and provides a catalyst for handling responsibility. This thread knits together the conditions for improvement, the process of improvement, the role of helpers, and the process of becoming an effective helper. It is simple, this thread, and yet it can be extraordinarily difficult. It is often distant and elusive, even though it is in front of us and inside us. We know it by letting go of it. We carry it with us by giving it to others. It is the most distorted and sought-after thing on earth. It's free, yet many go through extraordinary expense to achieve it. It's permanent. It exists moment to moment. We cannot touch it, taste it, smell it, or see it. The only way to have it is to experience it. It's called love. And that's what this work is all about. And that, in my mind, is what this life is all about. We're here to learn how to love. If you think about what God is and what God is about, there's a number of different ways of looking at God. The image of man is made in the image and likeness of God, and I look at myself and say, no, God, it's not like that. It's got to be better than that. Okay? And I recognize it's image and likeness because we are not God, even though I think we are God within us. So it's outside of our comprehension, but there are a number of ideas about how God operates, and we see it in different ways of thinking. One is kind of that God is an accountant. Okay? He keeps track of everything. There's this big book that counts how many prayers you've said about this, and when we sinned in this place, and so he's dishing out kinds of rewards and punishments and consequences, or maybe he's more like a probation officer or something like that. He keeps track of all of this stuff. That's one way that people have looked at God over the years. Another way that people have looked at God is he's like an engineer. Okay, he creates this incredible system and then steps back and says, "Go ahead." Okay, see it work. And if something breaks down, he goes in, fixes a little bit, and steps back again. See it happen. Okay. The one that I like and feels closest to me is that God is like a loving parent. And you see through Scripture referred to him as Father, not servant, not master, but Father. And as I reflect more on that and try to internalize that, the key word is love. And the more I think about it and read about it and try to experience it, that the essence of God is love. God is love. Love is God. That's what, if I use the word he, he's bigger than he, it's beyond our comprehension. We have to use the term he to communicate. But he is the power of love. And we go back to that we are made in his image and likeness, which means that we have the power of love within us. So it's a process of connecting this love from God within us, through all of us. That every person, whether disadvantaged or rich, whether it's Bill Gates or a homeless person on the street, has this within them. And our job here is to figure out how to connect with each other, to make contact with them. And that happens here on earth. It's not just something that happens in heaven where we're all loving and things come together. The way we were taught to pray says, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So this is the road to heaven. This is the training ground. I think of it as like an Olympic training center. You know, these Olympians go to if you want to run in the 100-yard dash, you'll run through water, okay, with weights on your legs, and and it's hard work and it's painful and you go through a lot, but you strengthen your muscles and you strengthen your endurance and you learn to run faster. And that's how I understand what our life here on earth is about. It's a training ground. And it makes it easier to deal with some of the people who seem to give us the most difficulty because they become our best teachers. And we actually, in hindsight, I'm able to thank God for the teachers that I would have loved to have thrown out of my life many times in the past. But I'm reflecting, that's what I learned the most from. We learn that way. And so this is a training ground. So what is this thing that we call love? Let's think about it. I want to go back to Scripture. Corinthians 13. This was the Scripture from my wedding. I understand it in a very different way than that time 14 years ago. If I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to move mountains, but do not have love, if I give away all my possessions, if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. And I just like to add here my own words. If I create the most beautiful program in the world, empower every disadvantaged person, bring a total end to poverty, but do it without love, I've wasted my time. Back to the Scripture. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. 1 So this is what it's about. To love is not to feel good. It's not what the radio stations tell us. It's not a warm, fuzzy, secure feeling. That can be a part of it at times. Actually, it's not an emotion. It's the most misunderstood thing in this world. An emotion is a temporary event that we experience in our body in reaction to what we're seeing. And that passes through and changes like that. Love is not an emotion. It's not a feeling of closeness. It's not a need. Although we all say, I feel a need to be loved. Okay? To love is something much larger than that. And I think it's summarized in these words of Scripture. Love is patient. And patience is more than endurance. Okay, that's also used later. Patience means we take the long-term view. We're willing to stay with it. Okay? We plant the seeds, and even if we're not ready to plant the seeds, we work with the soil so that the seeds will grow. Okay? We built our house, I'm still building it, working on it for 11 years, but it's built on top of a sandy hill. So the first 3 years, I planted rye and buckwheat and all of these greens, they grew up about this tall, and then I turned them in with my rototiller to build up the soil. Okay, and then I planted grass. So I spent many years just working with the soil and not no grass at all. So there's no immediate gratification when we're patient. We accept what's happening in the moment. This is what's dealt to us at this time. And we have the faith and the vision that it can be improved. And that it moves in that direction. And that's what patience is. Love is kind. We care. It touches our heart. That Jesus within us recognizes that there's a Jesus in the other person. And we open ourselves to that. We may feel the pain of the person. As a matter of fact, we need to. And I was misinformed when I went to graduate school because I was told that if you're going to be a psychologist, you've got to have a wall between you and your client. That's a little bull, quite frankly. Okay? You need to experience where they're at. You don't hold on to it. You don't say, "Oh God, it's terrible. How can I handle it?" Okay, that will destroy you. You won't last a month. Okay, but you know it hurts, and for a moment you experience that hurt. You feel it, and it hurts. And you let it pass through you, and then you look at what's the opportunity in this and how can you move in a direction that takes it. So you care. And from that caring comes a kindness, comes a gentleness, comes a respect, a concern. Even when somebody's in your face and yelling at you and spitting at you and calling you names and writing letters to the Attorney General and accusing you of fraud and doing all kinds of stuff, which happens. Okay. This is not a way to make friends and have people love you. Least of all, sometimes people in the community. There's a strong component in this country, I'll speak for the country, of people who are really down on people in poverty. You want to blame them for the things. And if you try to empower them and work with them, you'll get a backlash. People will shout at you and make you pay. That will happen. But if we work with love, we find the kindness in that, even with those. It's not envious, boastful, arrogant, or rude. It's not self-centered. Love passes through us, through to another, to connect to another. So I don't have investment in what's happening with that person. I respect their own road and their own path. And I have learned through difficulty and struggle, everything that I really can say that I've learned well and understood, I have learned by making mistakes and by doing stupid things and making quite a fool of myself in some situations. Those are my best teaching situations. So I'm not going to take that away from somebody. I may try to help them benefit from my mistakes or help them see the larger picture, but I can't fix it for them. Okay? It's not about me. And I'm not envious if someone has more success. I'm not focusing on that. It's a relationship. Okay? It's not about where I'm coming from. It's about where we can work together. So I'm not irritable or resentful. We can stay calm when we're not attached. When the people that we're working with don't have to succeed, It takes away a pressure, lets them be who they are, and lets them grow. If you try to make a plant grow faster, you kill it. Okay, you do. You've got to work with nature, and everyone has their own individual, unique nature. Love isn't something that you learn like you learn algebra. Okay, my son is learning long division. I had to show him how to line up the numbers. And he's got it, okay? And I'll teach him again. He's got it. Love is not like that. Love is unique with each person and situation we meet. And we're taught in this culture to think objectively and to keep track of things and to keep things organized. And this is not an objective process. It's a very different way of thinking. This pen is an object. Okay, I've had this pen. I bought a bunch of pens about 2 years ago, and this is one of them. I've been carrying this around me for a few months. This pen was here last night. Came with me. It was in Harrison yesterday. I haven't been traveling very much. Actually, this pen went to Washington, D.C. back in July. I had dinner at the White House. No big deal, just part of a context there. But, so this pen's been around, and it hasn't changed. Okay, it's still a pen. Take the top off. Good. Still a pen. Okay. Where are your pens? Okay. You got one, two, or, okay. If I mix it up with 2 other pens, okay, still a pen. Doesn't change. Okay. Pick them up. Okay. Drop it on the floor. Pick it up. Hasn't changed. Still a pen. Thanks. Objects are like that. That's nice. Okay, they stay the same. It's consistent. I put it up on the shelf. Actually, I had it sit in my drawer for a year and a half before I pulled it out. Still a pen. It hasn't changed. People are not like that. Love is not like that. Love and people are more like a liquid. This liquid, this water in here, was in a pitcher sitting on the table across the way there. Okay? And it had the shape of the pitcher when I first saw it. And I poured it out, and now it has the shape of the glass. It depends on where it is. It takes the shape of its container. Watch this. Now it has the shape of my stomach. Okay. Depends on where it is. It's totally different. This water is very different in my stomach than it was back in that pitcher. Okay? What happens when you mix 2 liquids? You saw when I mixed 2 pens, it didn't make any difference. So I take some coffee. Mix it down there first. And I pour some coffee in there, lukewarm coffee in cold water. And what do I get?
Dishwater.
Dishwater, yeah, basically. I'm not going to drink this, okay? Because it's very weak, kind of cool coffee. I can't get my water back. I can't get my coffee back. This has changed. That's the nature of working with people. We change. So it's not like I am some self-sufficient professional who's got his act together and knows everything going along and I'm going to share this with the world because I'm so wonderful. This is, we're in this earth together. We're in this struggle together. Whether I have all kinds of fancy things to separate myself or not, the bottom line is we're on this earth together and we both need to learn to love. And my experience, frankly, is I need to do a whole lot more than the people I was working with. I've learned more than they have. I had further to go. I have more obstacles and things to do. That's a beauty, and I think that's where the attitude, blessed are the poor, because they don't have all this stuff about image and trying to impress people. You've got a real person there. It's just Clare County just applied for a federal empowerment zone in the Hard Times Cafe, coordinating that effort. It's working with all of the agencies and organizations and businesses in the county. And I was so glad to get back to Hard Times Cafe and deal with people who didn't have their egos out front, who didn't have hidden agendas, but were just really clear and open and free. So our teachers are our partners in this process. So love doesn't rejoice in wrongdoing. It's not a competition. We have a clear sense of values and principles when we think from a loving perspective. There's a sense of integrity. It's not driven by pleasure or by winning. It's driven by what's right, by what fits, what opens our heart. Love rejoices in the truth. There is no falsity concerned about image. It's not how I look or how I appear or what are people going to think about me. It's what's real and what's present right here, right now. That's what love is about. It's not grand schemes or grand plans or wonderful strategies. It's about right here, right now. And Mother Teresa said, "I love one person at a time." That's what it's about. Love one person at a time. Love bears all things. Take what it gives us, and you bear it, and you carry it. And it can be very painful at times. The people that you partner with in a helping relationship will turn on you at times. The people who supposedly are supporting you in other relationships in the community will turn on you at other times. And you have to look at yourself and say, what did I do wrong? How did I feed to them? And I may rationalize that it's 90% them and 10% me, but I got to work with that 10%. And that's pretty rare. I'm always going to keep moving with 10%. So we got to look at that. And that's just part of it. And sometimes it seems totally unjust. People making up lies about me. Okay? That's where they are. And if you look at them from kindness and patience, you see that when people get defensive, they protect themselves. And they will fight back. And sometimes they attack in protecting themselves. And that's what happens. And that's part of learning to love, is that you bear that. And recognize that as a bump in the road. And some of those bumps knock you off the road for a second. But you fix your car, and you fix yourself, and you move back on the road. And the goal is to have the road become clearer and clearer, and to have it be easier and easier to get back on the road. Love believes all things. I think of it as being intentionally naive. And I've been accused of being naive, and I'll buy it. I am. To look for the potential, to see the beauty, to see every person as a diamond in the rough. It can be formed, it can grow, it can develop in each of us. It's there, but you have to see it first. And if you're looking at the negative stuff and you're looking at what's the opposite, that's what you see when you don't see the beauty that's in front of you. Hope's all things. Never gets up. Emily Gippon said, hope is the thing with feathers that perches on the soul and sings the song without the words and never stops at all. And you can trip, and you can fall, and you can mess up, but hope keeps you going, and that's a big part of it. And it endures frustration, pain, humiliation, betrayal, temporary conditions that challenge us to continue to open our heart. It's like putting weights on your legs and running through the water. Okay? If you can open your heart in the context of betrayal and humiliation, you can open your heart much easier in other situations. And that's what it's about. So really, love is a fulfillment of who we are and who we were created to be. It's a fulfillment of our own potential. And working together, we fulfill each other's potential. And to wound the heart is to create. And we will be wounded in this process. You don't have to intentionally go out and inflict wounds on yourself or find someone to do that. It will happen. Okay? That's part of life on this earth. But we learn through that, and we grow in it. And I think the key for me, in my own experience, and that's all I can speak of, in learning how to love, is to learn how to listen to God. God is love, as I understand. So I need to learn to listen to that God. And how do I discern from what is love and what isn't love? Because the world is going to tell me all kinds of things about what love is. All I got to do is watch TV for a night and get all kinds of messages about what love is and how you can get it and hold it. All you got to do is have enough money and all that right stuff. And you'll be loved. And that's one of the obstacles to love. Is the world really works against us in many ways. It tells us that we need to strive, we need to push, we need to succeed. But the faster we go, the less we see. Look out the road once I'm driving through a car. If you're going, I got really exhausted during this empowerment zone thing. I was working 60, 70-hour weeks, and when it was finally done, I was driving back from Clare, and I took the back roads and drove 50 miles an hour. And I've lived in Clare County for 12 years now, and I've driven that road hundreds of times, and I saw things that I never saw before. That I never saw at 63 miles an hour, that I did see at 55. We have to slow down enough to be able to love. And there is pressure from this world to keep on pushing, to keep on moving. God does not use voicemail. God doesn't have call waiting installed in us. Okay? We've got to slow down enough to be able to listen. We've got to let go of our preconceptions and our ideas of what it's all about. We've got to be confused in order to figure out what's really happening. The greatest signal that I've learned over the years of where I'm really about to mess up, particularly doing counseling, that's became most clear looking one-on-one or with a counselor or a group or something. But when I'm really about to step over and do something really stupid, is when I get this thing in my mind that says, I know what's happening now. I know what to do. As soon as I think I know what's going on, I'm about to mess up big time. Because then I'm thinking about me. And I've got this focus on, okay, wow, whatever it is. I've got this focus away from what's really happening in the situation. And I've learned to be flat because I'm saying, whoa, stop, back up. Because it's a process of being in a certain. I have a mentor who's been very helpful with me from the beginning of Hard Times Cafe. Her name is Rosalind. She's a woman who's, she never tells her age, but I guess she's somewhere in her 80s. And she says to me, let go and let God. And when I struggle and get into situations that I can't figure out, and I always forget to do it, and she tells me again and again, put it in your God file. And I've got a file in my file cabinet. It's God. And I write it down and put it in there. Turn it over to God, and I let go of it, and then I listen. It's a process of listening, of letting go of the exterior stuff. And there's also a skill in learning to do that, and there are some tricks and some things that you can do are very, very helpful for that. One is prayer. And I've learned that the more I pray, the better my work is. And actually, I've gone to twice now, I've gone to a monastery for a week where it's nothing but prayer. We'll be up at 3 in the morning and begin chanting the Psalms and do that 7 times through the day. It's total silence. And we spend the whole week in prayer. And I come away from that feeling more refreshed and energized and clear-headed than anything I've ever done every time again. So prayer, and as I've understood it more and more, there's lots of different kinds of prayer. There's prayers of petition and ask God to do this and so forth. But really, what I found in this process and this work to be most helpful is the prayer of listening. It's not me telling God what I want. I know what I need. Okay? It's me listening, letting go, get out of the way. And there's a technique that's been around for a number of years that I've found, that I've learned and I practice daily and as much as I can twice daily, called centering prayer. Where you simply sit quietly for 20 minutes without distraction, and all you do is repeat the name of Jesus slowly again and again and again. And when a thought's going to come into mind, I'm going to start thinking, oh, I got to get this done. And I just say, that's a thought. And I go back to Jesus. And then another thought comes in 2 seconds later, and I just say, that's a thought. And then there's something I got to do right away. And that's what happens in our life, is we get pulled this way, and we go back to God. We get pulled this way, and we go back to God. We get pulled this way, and we go back to Jesus. So doing this prayer trains us to go back to the center of things, back to the center of our lives. And I just found it to be extremely helpful. Another thing that happens, I think our greatest obstacle in learning love is our own mind in many respects. Because our mind is like a radio you can't shut off. rushing or hurrying or something's bothering you, running, you just go round and round and round and round. And another thing that I found to be very helpful in that process is what's called an active prayer sentence. And you choose a phrase, 6 to 12 syllables. And I don't exactly know why it's 6 to 12, but I do know that that seems to work. Shorter than 6 doesn't seem to work as well. Longer than 12 doesn't seem to work as well. Choose a phrase that brings you comfort. Choose one from Scripture. You can choose one from poetry, make one up. The ones I use most often, love is patient, love is kind. Guide our feet in the path of peace. Not my will, but thine be done. I just choose one for the day. Okay? And whenever I have mental dead time, taking a shower, going for a walk, driving, doing dishes, whatever, where I don't have to be thinking, okay, not when I'm writing a thing or talking to someone, obviously, but when I have mental dead time, which is a good part of our day, the times that I'm recycling, just simply, slowly and gently repeat that prayer sentence. Love is patient. Love is patient. My experience is if you do that, within a period of 2 or 3 days, you're creating a new groove in your mind. And you start to recycle and talk about, look what this guy did, told lies about me, he's ruining my reputations. Love is patient, love is kind. Let me explain just briefly how your brain works. I want to do that again. Okay, let me not explain how my brain works. Okay, time it up. Okay, I can do that in about 45 seconds. But
Do that in 45 seconds.
45 seconds, okay. Our brain is like my neighbor's backyard, okay? It's like a sandy hill. I won't go into details, but he had a hill in his backyard. It was pure sand, all smooth and nice. He got to smooth out with a bulldozer, and then it rained. And the rain made a whole bunch of little rivers down that sandy hill. And the next time it rained, the water went down the same rivers. Okay, and then when it snowed, the snow melted, the water went down the same rivers. That's how our brain works. It's a self-organizing system. It organizes itself in response to your experience. Okay? So you have an experience and it creates a river. And really what we need to be able to do is to switch rivers. Because I have Bob's experience. And if I'm going to meet you, I need to understand your experience. So I need to be able to switch out of my rivers. Okay? So what this active prayer does is create another river. And our driveway used to be, it was a really bad kind of clay, gravel, and in the March, you just get deep ruts. There was no way you could drive into that driveway without running into the ruts. Okay? So what I had to do was to smooth it all over and create another rut. Okay? But what you do with this prayer, what you do with centering prayer, is create a different path. And then you learn to switch. You make that stronger by repeating it and by going through it. One other technique that I'll share with you that's been very powerful with me in learning this process is it's kind of a breathing process. But when I am with someone in pain or have experienced a painful situation or my own pain or I'm angry at someone, I close my eyes and I breathe in that pain through every pore of my body and let it come right into my chest, into my heart. Just breathe in. And then I breathe out a sense of peace and relaxation. This is a technique that's been around for a long time. I found it very effective, especially in this process of learning how to put love into our work and into our lives. This is the best university that we could have in terms of learning how to love. You'll never get a PhD in love. You'll get a master's degree, get a bachelor's degree, get a diploma. You won't get any kind of tangible reward necessarily in this life. The reward is in the process. It's in the moment. It's in living it and doing it. You never get there. You never finally say, I've got it. I've got love. It's not something you can grab and put in your pocket or hang on your wall and say you've got it. And the more you learn it, the more you find out. It's an ongoing process, and we need each other to make it happen. And that's my prayer for
much longer, but I just really appreciate the reminder to take time, and your love for God and your love for people is so evident, and we're really glad you're here to share with us. So, thank you. Just a couple of housekeeping reminders. In your packet, you have an evaluation form. I know these things are sometimes cumbersome, you want to get on your way, but they're so helpful to us. So before you leave for the day, please leave them with anyone that has a name tag on or in the lobby in the chapel. They're very helpful to us in our planning. We're going to the Commons Dining Hall for lunch. If you're not familiar with the campus, it's a little bit tricky to get there. Do I have some Calvin students here that maybe can lead the group? If it's raining, there's a way to get there, mostly inside, but I don't know that way. If it's not raining, you can walk outside and hear the writer. These folks would help lead you there. That's great. For those of you who are coming back for the Broel housing simulation, that will be in the Calvin Chapel in the downstairs part. And we really ask you to try to leave at 1:15 promptly so we can begin on time. For those of you who are staffers, I need you to be back there at 1 o'clock. So just wanted to get you out of here in time will really help if you watch the lunch schedule. So thank you for coming. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, okay.
Hi, how are you? Jenny, sure, right. I knew you were familiar.
Good.
Good.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on it.
Safety afternoon, there are some
Yeah, I
sections.
thought, and I use it interchangeably, sometimes one works as a century for I just do every day.
Very good, yeah.
Which is a
Century for Jesus.
No, it's really, concepts is to why this case of what it's like to provide for your
Okay.
And if you remind things
Right.
that are.
Right, right.
If you
Which we
don't
don't
get a
often get
chance,
in the other
we do
shoots.
try to do this twice a year. So we're going to do it in the spring, March, Tuesday.
Okay. All right.
If you're able to stay, that's okay. There's the opportunity, we'll register you right at the door.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you again. Really
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank you.
all
It's
your
nice to have an opportunity
wisdom.
to share this, because this is a different way of presenting. I know it's not honest. It's not just the mind. It's not just the way it Yeah.
No, I don't, I'll try to catch up with the person that's doing the videotape.
Okay. If you want to make a copy of it, you're
Oh,
welcome
that'd be
to
great.
use that,
Okay.
in, whatever way is helpful.
Oh, that's, yeah, would be good to have.
Yeah.
Because then it would be a-
Yeah.
We made a couple things. Yeah, who knows where that might go.
Yeah, you can either send it to me or.
Yeah, if I don't catch him today, I'm gonna have to leave lunch early and get back to start this poverty simulation. So if I don't catch up with you, I'll be sure to get the tape
Okay.
by mail to you.
Okay, great.
Everybody's here? Good.